Hi guys, I wasn't too sure what I wanted to talk about today, but I think I have to acknowledge something first. I've had the ends of my hair ombre-ed. Hello, my name is Sophie and welcome to another day of Vlogmas. I received a comment on one of my videos the other day about how I seemed like I was quite new to YouTube, and I found that mildly ironic that the whole reason I'm doing Vlogmas this year is because it's 10 years since I first did Vlogmas. And with that 10 years in mind, the video that I posted 10 years ago today was it was about books. It was a video that I called A Study in Reading Habits, which was the name of a poem I was studying in one of my English literature classes, and I hated poetry and I didn't enjoy English literature as a subject to study. Obviously I like books and I like reading, but studying literature is what put me off reading, and I think is what put a lot of people off reading for a long time, but not the point. The intonation of the name of that poem really stuck with me, and I really like how it flows. I don't know, I just think it's really catchy, A Study in Reading Habits. And in that video I spoke about 5 of my favourite books, which ironically 2 of them are series that I still have on my shelf that I would like to reread to see if they still hit the same as an adult. One was The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, which for some reason I never kept. I don't have that copy of the book anymore and don't really know why, because I did really love the book, but either way, don't have it. The 4th was another book that I still have and I want to reread, but I genuinely can't remember anything about. And the 5th is one that still remains on my list, comfortably, certainly on my list. So today I have attempted to pick out 5 favourite books, but it's been incredibly difficult. I started a list on my phone earlier this year of what I call 6-star reads. So I use a 5-star rating system to rate my books. I think that's quite common within the bookish community. If you use Goodreads or Storygraph, they both use 5-star rating systems. Like Amazon, all of the review systems are 5-star systems. But I have a list on my phone called 6-star books. So these are the books that not only did I rate 5 stars, but they have a piece of my soul, a piece of my heart lives in those books. They live rent-free in my head and I adore them with every fibre of my being. Even if I know that they have flaws, they're perfect to me. That list currently only has 3 books on it because there's a lot of books that I want to reread before I decide whether they're still a 6-star read for me. So the list is absolutely incomplete and ongoing, and I feel like these 5 that I've chosen aren't really representative of what I really enjoy from books, because other than the repeat from the video from 10 years ago, they're all contemporary romances. Yeah, and I really do love contemporary romance, but there's so many like fantasy books that I love, and I actually read some sci-fi this year. I read Ready Player One, which I loved, but it just wasn't a 6-star read. So maybe the 6-star reads are just contemporary romance for me. But I mean, there's even a colour scheme. This is what I've managed to culminate as a list of my 5 favourite books at the moment. So the first book I want to talk about is the one that is a repeat from the video I made 10 years ago. I reread this earlier this year and it's still absolutely one of my favourite books, hands down, no question. I think it's so clever, so like painfully human, and completely underrated, and I've never seen anyone talking about it. I was quite young when I read this book, probably in year 6 or 7, so like between 10 and 12, and it's probably my favourite book of all time. It's called The Innocent Story by Nikki Singer. I have no idea where I picked this up from. I remember reading it when I was in primary school, so I must have been 10 or 11 when I first read it. Let's start with the blurb and then I'll talk more about the book. I'm not quite the person I was at 5:11 p.m. yesterday afternoon. In fact, I may not be a person at all. When Casina is blown up in a bomb attack, life as she knows it is over, except that she doesn't die. Casina becomes a paraspirit, a presence that can live in other people's minds. Nobody knows she's there, but she can see their thoughts and feel their emotions. She just can't do a thing to change them. Being in the minds of her grieving parents is not good. Being in Mad Aunt Lou's brain is an eye-opener. But Akim's head, that's a dangerous place, because Casina knows he's going to do something terrible, worse than before, and it's up to her to stop him, but how? So it's kind of a take on the afterlife, but also this 12-year-old girl, I think she's 12, she's a child, gets killed in a bomb attack and then ends up in the mind of the guy that pulled the trigger. It's so clever, it's so interesting. There's some elements that kind of imply some sort of I don't want to say magic or maybe a higher power, but it's so interesting, it's so clever. I really adore this book. And I mean, I first read it when, let's say I read it when I was 10 in 2006. I reread it this year and it still absolutely slaps. I really enjoy this book. I think it's so clever. I recommend it to, well, actually I don't recommend it that often, because then when people ask what it's about, I have to say, oh, it's about a 12-year-old girl who's killed by a suicide bomber and then she ends up as like a spirit in his head, which does make me sound a bit weird. Honestly, I love this book. It's absolutely battered. I've read it several times. Like I say, I read it this year and I think some of the pages nearly fell out, so I want to invest in another copy. But because it's not a popular common book, there's not many copies around. I can't recommend this more wholeheartedly. And I think the fact I included it in my video 10 years ago and I'm including it in this one says everything about how much I love this book. Right, I'm gonna start with the kind of maybes and then get on to the definites. The first 4 books I picked for this top 5 were relatively easy, but the 5th one was a difficult one to choose, because it's not just the book that you choose, but it's the books that you don't choose by choosing it. Maybe I'm overanalyzing this, but the book I picked was Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. I absolutely adore this story. It was the book that got me out of a reading slump last year. I loved the main characters. I just loved everything about it. It was so good. I like the sprayed edges as well. I love Ali Hazelwood as an author, and this is definitely my favourite of her works. I think for me, one of the massive differences between a book that I would consider a 5-star and a 6-star is one that I could reread again and again and again, and this is one that I'm desperate to reread. I just don't have time when I have so many other unread books. The only reason I was hesitant to put it on the list over other books is because I really wanted to put a fantasy book on here, but I just couldn't think of one that I loved more than this. The next book is one, again, that I read when I was a teenager and I absolutely adored, but I'm not sure it would still have the same impact now, because it is about a teenager. I believe she's in her first year of college, but her experience was so telling of my experience as a teenager, and it's one that is on my list to reread, so I can evaluate whether it still deserves its place on this list, but for now I'm going to include it, and that's Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I absolutely devoured this when I was a kid. I was a fanfiction writing girly. I found my community online with people who loved the same kind of series and films and books that I did, and everything about Kath was everything. This could have been me writing fanfiction of my own life. From what I remember, I really adore this, and from what I've read of other people talking about it recently, it still kind of hits. This meant so much to me as a teenager, and I need to find out if it still means the same to me now, and I have a sneaky suspicion it will. So the last 2 books are the ones that are definitely on my 6-star list, no question, but they absolutely fulfill the whole contemporary romance only thing as well. So we'll start with Red, White and Royal Blue by Katie McQuiston. There's a lot of hype about this book and I think it's absolutely justified. The 2 protagonists are the first son of the first female American president in a fictional world where she succeeds Barack Obama. It's all about his relationship with the prince that will never be king of the British monarchy. Alex and Henry. I'm obsessed with Alex and Henry. I love them so much. I reread this earlier this year in anticipation of the film coming out. Don't get me wrong, the film was good. I gave it like a 7 out of 10, but there's just so much more content in this book that obviously they couldn't put in the film. They had to cut some things and take some shortcuts to be able to make a film that was actually not 5 hours long, but I'll always prefer the book. This book is so good. I absolutely flew through it, considering this is another fat one. This is over 400 pages as well, but it's so easy to read. I absolutely lapped this up. I listened to this on audio the first time I listened to it, and I loved it so much that I had to run out and get a physical copy, which I have now read as well, which is why the spine looks like this. I absolutely adore this story. If you like some celebrity culture in your books, this one's really good for that, because both of the main characters are people that never really not wanted to be famous, but like being famous wasn't the be all and end all. Like Alex wants to be a politician, Henry is a Prince of England, he never really got a choice in the matter. His life and his duty is the crown, and that's a point of contention in this book. But it's about both of them figuring out their lives, being young people, being constantly perceived by other people and having to follow expectations. It's just beautiful. It's absolutely heart-wrenching. I just love them so much. I could reread these 5 books on loop for the rest of my life and I think I'd be happy, honestly. And then the last book on my list is one that I read this year but instantly became a rival for The Innocent Story for my favourite book of all time. It's the 3rd instalment in a series of interconnected standalones. It started with The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, and it is The Heart Principle. This is the Illumicrate Afterlight special edition collection, because when they came back into stock for the reprint I just could not resist. I adore this book with my entire heart, body and soul. Let's read the summary because I'm definitely not going to do oh, the artwork in this book. For one, look at the naked hardcover. It's just beautiful. And then the artwork of the characters at the front and the back. That's why I couldn't resist this edition. It's just stunning. I'll read this summary because otherwise I won't do it justice. When violinist Anna Sun accidentally achieves career success with a viral YouTube video, she finds herself incapacitated and burned out from her attempts to replicate that moment. And when her longtime boyfriend announces he wants an open relationship before making a final commitment, a hurt and angry Anna decides that if he wants an open relationship, then she does too. Translation: she's going to embark on a string of one-night stands. The more unacceptable the men, the better. That's where tattooed motorcycle riding Kwan Diep comes in. Their first attempt at a one-night stand fails, as does their second and their third, because being with Kwan is about more than sex. He accepts Anna on an unconditional level that she herself has just started to understand. However, when tragedy strikes Anna's family, she takes on a role that she is ill-suited for, until the burden of expectations threatens to destroy her. Anna and Kwan have to fight for their chance at love, but to do that, they also have to fight for themselves. Oh, my heart breaks just reading about that. I love an interconnected standalone because you just get to see a taste of each character throughout the book, and then you get to see their full relationship, and it's so exciting. So in book 1, we're following Stella as a main character with autism who hires Michael as... Michael is... I think he calls himself an escort. Stella hires him to basically teach her how to be in a relationship, and that goes exactly how you would expect it to go in a contemporary romance. So the rest of the series follows a couple of Michael's cousins. The second book is about one of Michael's cousins who is also autistic, so it presents autism from a male perspective, again from someone who's already diagnosed. And this book follows his other cousin Kwan and Anna, who doesn't even consider that she could be autistic until her therapist tells her. And I went into this thinking this is going to be the first book in the series with no autism representation, and then I was slapped in the face with autism representation that was just like my story except for the viral video bit. It hit me so hard. Everything about it was perfect. Because Kwan has an autistic brother, he's grown up with autism, he understands the nuances of autism, and even if he didn't have an autistic brother, he's such an empathetic and thoughtful person. I think he would be perfect for Aunt Anna anyway. Not only is the autism representation in this, not just this book but this whole series, absolutely perfect, because it would be so easy to write 3 autistic characters in basically the same way, because I think a lot of neurotypical perception of autism is that all autistic people are the same, but it is literally called autism spectrum disorder, and I think Helen Huang perfectly writes the spectrum element of that, and all 3 of the stories of the main autistic characters are completely different. There's only so much I can say about this without just repeating how much I love it, but I love this story with my whole heart. This is unquestionably in my top 5, if not my top 3. Choosing between this and The Innocent Story for my favourite book of all time is a really, really tricky one, because they are so different and incomparable in so many ways, but I adore this book with my heart and soul. to the degree that I bought 2 copies of it this year. The other one's under my Christmas tree, so we're not going to play that game today, but I bought the paperback versions, and then I got the notification that Illumicrate special edition versions were being reprinted, so obviously I had to buy them as well. But absolutely obsessed. Again, I listened to this on Audible as well, so I technically own 3 copies of this book, and yeah, I could happily listen to it for the rest of my life. Ironically, the first I heard about this book was when I heard Chandler Ainsley talking about it on her YouTube channel, and she slated it. She really didn't enjoy it at all, and I completely see the points she's making, but I just don't agree with them at all. I'm not saying anyone's wrong. It's obviously, reading is completely subjective, and that's the joy of it. But yeah, ironic that I'm pretty sure she rated it 2, maybe 3 stars, and I'm here with like 6 stars, have all of the stars, and my entire heart. You can have it. Helen Huang, she owns it now. And that's the beauty of BookTube, I suppose. There's always going to be someone that rates a book 1 star and someone that rates a book 5 star, and that is the beauty of reading. So, as of today, these are the 5 books that I would call my 5 favourite books of all time. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the comments I've had about the bookish topics I've been talking about, because I was a bit nervous about giving my channel a niche. The responses I've had have been really sweet, really motivating for me, so thank you very much. If anyone else wants to share their top 5 books, if you can narrow it down, honestly it's really hard, please do let me know in the comments, because I'm always looking for recommendations. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you for another vlogmas tomorrow. Bye guys.